And let's open our hearts to all the people and our prayers for all the people, wherever they are, who are suffering, who are ill, who are in war zones, who are hungry, sick. Bless all beings. Matthew, you want to lead us through a meditation?
Yeah, thank you, Bruce. Let's meditate. So settle yourself. Breathe in through the nose, out through the nose. Just take a moment to scan through the body, starting with the top of the head, slowly moving down. Look for any tension, pain, anything that sticks out. On an inhale, breathe into those areas of tension. And on the exhale, relax them. See if you can, while removing tension in this way, at the same time, stabilize your posture. See how you can settle into your posture through relaxation rather than tension. Now turn your attention to all bodily sensations. Just open your awareness to the whole field of sensations in your body. Now turn your attention to the field of sound. Now turn your attention to the visual field. Whatever images, shapes, colors appear, whether the eyes are open or closed. Now open the awareness to all the different fields of perception, bodily sensations, sounds, sights, and thoughts. As well as taste and smell. Whatever arises, let the mind go where it will.
Okay, we're going to launch right into the discussion. And Matthew, I advise you to be a little parsimonious tonight, which means focused, because we got a lot of questions. But if we don't get through them all, we can come back or not. Um, and um, so I'm going to start with some questions that we got from our true skeptic, who unfortunately is not here tonight, um, but will probably watch the recording. So, um, and this person wonders whether an awakening is real. Having, experienced some non-duality and profound states, he just wonders if awakening is real. So the first question it is the experience and recognition of awakening the same for everyone, or is it different based on beliefs, culture, experience, and expectations? And I think this person's view is that everyone's recognition, everyone's awakening is unique to that person, that setting, that practice.
So, one of those interesting questions. So, the question is awakening the same for everyone, or is it dependent upon cultural conditions, time, place, culture, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? The briefest answer I could possibly give is yes. In other words, both things can be true. Look at what we know. We know that people have described different things differently. We know people have described awakening differently. We know people have described enlightenment differently. We know there are even different words for it, different concepts for it. So we can see that in the literature and throughout history. And if you go to different cultures, they have different ideas of what this ultimate realization is. They may not even call it realization or awakening or whatever. So we know that's true, that there are all these different descriptions. So the question is really, is there an underlying, and we know really that the descriptions of their experience of awakening also are different, right? Even just the circumstances are different. They describe it according to the tradition that they're in, and so on and so forth. And so we know that the experience is at least colored by this conditioning and the way that it's explained. But so the real question is there a reality? Is there an underlying reality that is the same to all? And I would say yes, there is. But this is how language is, right? We have, how many different words for the moon are there? Lots of different words, but there's only one moon. So that's what I would say is going on. There is an underlying reality, and you can see it if you have that experience, and then you look at all the different traditions and how they're describing it. You can see it's plain as day. They are describing the same underlying reality. They may not be describing the same experience. The person maybe has their own experience, but they are describing the same underlying reality. And, of unity or oneness and so on. So there can only be one oneness. And if that's what everyone is describing, then that's it.
Okay, to follow up on that, Matthew, um, how can we know and why should we believe your experience of awakening is real and not another manufactured experience? Could it be another delusion?
The great question. Um, so how can you know? Ultimately, only through your own investigation, through your through your own awakening. That's how you can really know. Because if you have that, then you will see, you will look at all the people and you'll say, yeah, that's it's clear as can be. That's the only way you can really know, is through your own direct experience. And this is why we have teachings and practices and so on and so forth. As far as why should you think one thing or another, that's really up to you. You know, you have your own reasons why. I will say, you know, people, why is one on a spiritual path? Because, you know, one is looking for peace, one is looking for happiness, one is looking for truth. If you hear somebody says they found it, then that's of interest to the search. You know, you don't have to believe. I think if you find a good teacher, it's okay to have some faith in what they're saying, but only on the way to your own investigation to you know, it's the old trust but verify, you know, thing. I think some trust is helpful, but only your own investigation will lead to peace. Was there a part of that I missed?
Well, could your experience be another delusion for you?
Great question. I asked this question myself after my own awakening. So at the moment of awakening, I had no doubt. I thought, this is it. This is exactly what everybody has been talking about. This is what I read about. This is what all the great mystics wrote about. What else could it be? There was no doubt in my mind. But in the weeks that followed, you know, I have a kind of a, I'm myself skeptical by nature. That's why I like this. I welcome this skeptical conversation because, you know, I was a skeptic myself of these things. I sort of thought it's possible. Then I became skeptical of it. Then I completely discounted it. Then I kind of came full circle, you know. So I asked myself this question. I thought, you know, could this be anything else? Is there any, is there any way I can overturn this in my mind? You know, can I refute it? Can I disprove it or something like that, you know? And I also thought, could it be anything else? Could it be a delusion? Could it be that I'm crazy? Could it be that I have a brain tumor? Could it be all these other things? But nothing really held any weight in against it, and except for one time. There was one, I was thinking through all these different things. Could it be this? Could it be that? Could it be this? And then I had this thought. I thought, could I be dead? And this thought caught me for about 20 seconds, 30 seconds. And I believed it. I thought, that's it. I'm dead. And that would explain this. And for about 20 seconds, I completely believed that thought. I thought I was dead. I started wondering, how did I die? How did my parents find out? that I looked across the room at the door that went to the hallway, and I thought, what is out that door? I had no idea. And I started to get very scared because I didn't know what was going to happen, and then just like that, I realized, oh, it's just a thought. That's a thought that I'm dead. And that was like the last thought I ever believed, really. With that thought going, everything else is just thoughts. If life and death, and that's the thing, it wasn't just the thought that I'm dead that went out the window. It was also the thought that I'm alive. If you can 100% believe that you are dead and experience it that way, then the experience of being alive is also just a thought. The reality is we don't have any idea what's going on. I still don't know that I'm not dead. See, there's no so after that, any kind of thought that arose in my mind about what else this could be, there's no way around when you see it absolutely clearly that all those thoughts are just thoughts. They have no bearing on reality. Reality itself can't be broken by thoughts. And all thoughts are just thoughts. And so I finally concluded that, this is how I worded it to myself. I thought, well, that's it. You can't break reality. So there's no way out of it. In other words, from my perspective, it can't be wrong. It's not even possible because there's no way out. There's no way, there's nothing outside of everything, and this is everything. So it's categorically different than any previous experience. And I had many weird, unusual experiences. I had experiences of unity. I had encounters with other beings, both demonic and angelic. I had, I one time stopped all my thoughts and merged with cosmic consciousness. I had many out-of-body experiences. I had, many profound experiences on the path. This is categorically different. Categorically different. It's not, and this is why the teachings say it's not an experience fundamentally. If it were just an experience, it would come and go. You would have the experience would pass, and then maybe you would have this memory of it, and you could hang on to that for a while, but that would go too. It would just come and go. And if it were just a thought, that would come and go also. If it were a concept or an idea or a model of how things are, it could be argued against. You could come up with a counter model. You could say, and if you look at philosophy, 2,000 years of philosophy shows that people are very good at arguing against various views and points. Any view can be argued against. Any view you can say, I disagree, and come up with a counter view. And it's just, it's not like that. There's not a counter view, because it's not a view. It isn't anything in particular. You can't really point to it and say what it is. You can't really explain it. There's nothing outside of it. It has no edges or limits.
Why is it not a view? That's another skeptic's question.
Because there are no distinctions. It has no distinctions. That's why. All views have distinctions. In a view, you say it's like this and not like that. But non-duality isn't like that. It's, it's in between. And also all encompassing, So that's what I would say. But I want to reiterate what I said earlier is that you can only really know that through one's own direct experience.
So I'm going to do another question on the list, and then we'll open it up for any follow-ups from anyone listening. But since you mentioned that you one of your final thoughts that troubled you was the thought that I was dead, we did have a question submitted. Um, you teach that while the body will die, I, in quotes, cannot. I'm curious if anything more can be said about how this confidence arises, leading to the statement of I am immortal, or if it's like the ineffable question of asking, how do I eliminate the small I as the last barrier of disillusionment?
I mean, that is I suppose, the ineffable question, but it's quite mysterious, I would say, but I think this all comes down to identification. How does the consciousness identify with various things? And normally, I, I was identified with my mind and my body. I thought I was my mind. I thought I was my body. And if you think you are your mind and your body, and you see that minds and bodies pass away, then you will feel in one form or another the full sting of mortality. You will think I'm going to die one day. And because you think your body is what you are, or your mind is what you are. And so this, as you say, confidence of immortality, so to speak, comes from no longer identifying with the mind and body. And seeing, metaphorically, that which is beyond, and becoming essentially identified with that, or going into that. Then you think, okay, the mind and body will pass away, but I won't, because I'm not my mind and I'm not my body. It's not super complicated, really. Um, and, but it is, I think, mysterious because, we come upon that identification not through our own will. And in some sense, it leaves also not from our own will. Or at least that was my experience.
If anyone has a question, either um, raise your hand or you do it on there. But that leads to another question that someone submitted. You and other spiritual teachers say that I, do not really exist. While there are moments where this makes sense, my mind gets stuck on believing in itself. Can you help me with this? What advice would you give to someone who feels, yes, I am my mind? How can I not be?
One thing is to see that all such um, internal explanation is our only thoughts. In other words, for one, you could be convinced you aren't your mind, and then the next minute you'll be convinced you are. And then, later maybe you have some extraordinary experience and you think, maybe I'm not. But these are all just thoughts. If you abandon all the thoughts, then and keep going, and you don't replace it with anything else, then what does life look like? And the other thing that I would say is contemplate, and this is what I did, is contemplate what is your mind and where did it come from? Because if you can come to some final conclusion about the origin of the mind and where it comes from, at least for me, this resolved the question, because I saw that the mind, my body was born out of the world. My mind seemed to be born out of that. So my mind couldn't be any different than what I saw in the world. In other words, I was looking at my own mind. Everything is mind stuff, We think the mind is in there, but it's actually everywhere. Everything that you see is your mind. So, this will lead to a deeper question. Like, if everything I see is my mind, what am I, Deep inquiry is the answer.
I love your answers, Matthew. Okay. So, deep inquiry. For many of us, you have advised us to look for nothing. Nothing and emptiness seem different, sometimes very different. How can I look and find nothing?
Good question. You tell me. I can't give away the whole game, Bruce.
This is the key question.
This is, there's several levels to this question. On one level, the level at which I'm joking about, it's an impossible problem, like a Zen koan. How am I going to look for nothing? Where am I going to look? And also everywhere you look, you see something. So, this is a kind of pointing, like, as I say, the finger pointing at the moon. Well, this nothing, this is the moon that's being pointed to. And to say, look for nothing, is to say it isn't anything that you can think of. It isn't an object. It isn't a thought. It isn't a concept. It's not an idea. It's not an experience. It isn't, you name it. It's nothing that can be named. And so then you have to start contemplating, what is it like to see nothing? What is that? And I can give you a few pointers. It's like the back of your mind or the back of your head. If you I mean, forget that you're looking into a computer screen that shows you the back of the room. That's just actually an image in front of you. You can't really see behind you. So you don't really know what's there. If all you're trusting is your direct experience, what you see as the back of the room in your screen is actually just an image that's in front of you. You don't know what's back here. And if you try to ascertain what's back here through the senses, you can't detect anything. It has no color, no shape, no extension, no space. It isn't anything at all. So that's one kind of pointer. And another pointer that I would say is it's like deep sleep, the deepest of sleep, which many people will say is a non-experience. Well, investigate this non-experience. It doesn't contain anything. There are no thoughts there, no images, no sounds, no shapes, no ideas, no concepts, no space, no time, and so on. So it isn't anything you can think of. So look for that. Look for the opposite of what you do when you look for something. Look for nothing. See, that's where it comes in. You know, Franklin Merrill Wolff had this saying, and I think this is also very instructive, although a bit technical. He said, how did he put it? He said, substantiality is inversely proportional to ponderability. And what he meant by this is that the more you're able to ponder something, the less real it is. And in terms of this search for nothing, it's pointing you towards the imponderable. So you can kind of scale. You can when you look at something, you can ponder it. An object, you can turn it around in your hand, and you can think about what it is, and do all kinds of things. Like you can feel it. You can hear it, and all these kinds of different things. You can ponder about it. So it isn't that. So find what is imponderable. Dial back the mind until you find nothing.
How does looking for nothing relate to a reality with no distinctions?
Well, there are no distinctions there.
In nothing?
Yeah.
So nothing is the same as reality?
Yeah.
That's clear.
Yeah. Yeah, it has no limit, it has no distinctions, it's all encompassing. Anywhere you look, there it is. It's behind everything. That's the emptiness sense of it. All objects are nothing. And fundamentally, there's nothing but that. So all of reality, even all of creation, all the wonders of creation, and all the beautiful lives and beautiful things that we can experience, are ultimately also that. In the same way that a dream appears in deep sleep, the universe appears in nothing.
I think Dave might have a question.
Well, I was just wondering at this point, Bruce, since you just said, well, nothing is reality. At this point, Matthew, would you use any other words that are equanimous?
I mean, there's many words that people have given to this. What is fundamental? That's the question. What is fundamental? In what does everything appear? What is the true nature of reality, or what's the ground, upon which we're having? What the hell is going on? That's kind of the question, and so yeah, in the Indian tradition, they call it Brahman, the supreme reality. I like this word because it doesn't point to anything. It's just this kind of abstract idea, supreme reality, or the absolute. That's it. Nisargadatta Maharaj called it the absolute. Also doesn't get too entangled in thoughts and concepts. There's the Tao. There's there's different concepts that play at the edge of it, and the things that emerge from it. There's like things come into being out of this, right? This is where everything comes from, you could say, the source, the origin, and so there are all kinds of concepts that play right at the edge of it, right? But conceptually speaking, it's like a black hole. How a black hole, no information can come out of it. So the concepts go and go and go, but when they hit that event horizon, the concepts just disappear and everything goes dark. You can't say anything about it. And so, yeah, we have all these words, but they all live on the event horizon. Right at the edge, when we have a kind of liminal concept of that which is beyond. Clara, do you have a question?
So I'm still thinking of when you said how to look, the question I think was how to look for what's not unreachable. I don't know how to look for what's nothing, or the nothingness. And so the idea of looking for it sounds impossible right now to me. But the only thing that sounds possible, and tell me if this is correct, is to think of the neti-neti, like just discard
Yes. Yeah.
until you get to that, because looking for that directly, well, I don't know, because sometimes if we get silence, something drops back and we can sense it or feel it, I don't know, perceive it, know it.
It's very tricky. Yeah, I think it's safe to say.
It's super tricky, yeah.
Super tricky. But this is a good approach. This is not that, not this, not that. That's kind of what I was getting at with what Franklin Merrill Wolff was saying. If you can ponder it, that's not it. And everything that you can imagine, you can ponder, because you're already pondering it as you imagine it.
So I guess sometimes the mind gets tired, because if you start discarding things, like, okay, no, this is an idea, so that's not it. This is a concept,
Right.
that's not it. This is a sensation or an experience, that's not it.
Yeah, how long are you going to go on? 10,000 things, a million things, 20 million things,
Yeah.
before your mind gets the idea. You just have to see, oh, I see where this is going. You see the infinity of things, none of which will satisfy you. And
So I guess
then
the mind has to drop, because
yes.
it will get exhausted, or
Yes, because the
there's
mind
a
is,
limit where it cannot go. So
yeah, the mind itself we think is something,
does the mind has limits,
even
right?
the void. People, somebody asked me about the void. If you've meditated, maybe you've experienced the void. And they said, "Is that it?" I said, "No, that's still something. You can ponder the void. You can be afraid of the void. You can long for the void. See, it's something. It isn't nothing."
So would you say, like, I'm thinking of a conversation I had with a friend time ago. Would you say that the mind has a limit, and that the reality or the black hole, I don't know how to describe it, is beyond the mind. But if we can experience it, how can it be beyond the mind? How can it be not part of the mind?
This is a question that comes from believing you are your mind. See, do you see? If you believe you are your mind, yeah, then you would say, if it's beyond the mind, how could I experience it? But that's assuming you are the mind.
Okay, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And the other thing that I will say on that is, you said, does the mind have a limit? The mind that you imagine you have, and I'm just speaking in general terms, the mind that people imagine they have, yes, it has a limit. It was born and it will die. It arose and it will dissipate. And you can actually see its arising and dissipation with the coming and going of deep sleep. It's not always there. Even during the day, sometimes you space out, the mind is gone. But I would say, on an even deeper level, investigate whether the mind really does have any limit. Where are its limits? You know, if the mind is just a bundle of thoughts, its limits are whatever is beyond thought. But if you go beyond thought, you have an experience. And like you said, so is that still mind? Now, this starts to all depend on what words you use. You know, in Buddhism, they have this idea of the one mind. Okay, well, this is the big mind. So you could say that's part of the big mind. But at that point, it's no longer what you thought, you know, the old noggin mind. It's something more all-pervasive, something that goes beyond mere thought. Or you might conclude, actually, the mind itself does not exist. It is nothing more than a bundle of thoughts, and you can go beyond it. And you can see the mind appear in consciousness as an object, just like all other objects. Who sees it?
Great discussion there. All right, I'm going to throw the question at you that everyone's been waiting for, and a topic that's taboo pretty much in our
The
society.
question everyone's been waiting for. That's funny.
Can you speak about sex on the spiritual path as a part of practice? Consider love, transcendence, pleasure, attachment, confusion, stress. And some traditions urge celibacy, while others teach tantric sexual practices. We're all curious. What can you say?
We're all curious. What can you say? You know, sex is like all things. We could, you know, if you take the Buddhist point of view, you should start with some ethical foundation, move on to concentration, you know, and finish with wisdom. You know? You know, this is a topic that I don't mind talking about, but it is a topic that I feel like whatever I say, people are going to get the wrong idea. And so I think the more specific I am, the less chance there is for misunderstanding, I guess. And so let me break down the question just a little bit. So and let's start with this idea, because we know this. We can look around at the various traditions, and we know that there are different approaches to sexual practice, right? Some say, if you're going to be on a spiritual path, you need to be celibate, or you need to follow certain rules, or so on. Others say, seem to say, no problem, do what thou wilt. Others say, there are specific things you could do with regard to sexual practice that might be beneficial on your path. And I would say, that's all. There are all these different views, right? And there's probably something to all these different views, and so, but it's such a charged area of life, and I think that's why there are probably more traditions that say, just minimize this or whatever. Don't make a big deal of it, because it can become a huge distraction to one's practice, But I think that it can be used in one's practice, especially for people like us who aren't monks, or we're living sort of householder lives. We have lives. Some of us are married. Some of us have girlfriends or boyfriends, and so sex is a part of all of that. And so if it's a part of your life already, the question becomes, how can you I don't want to say use it as a part of your spiritual practice, but how can it be a part of your spiritual practice? And I would say the clearest guidance that I could give on that is anything that you do to anything that you do from a place of selflessness and love, and anything that you do in the interest of cultivating selflessness and love will be of benefit to your practice. But the opposite is also true, and that's why you get these polarized views of sex, because anything that you do from and in the interest of selfish desires are going to be a hindrance to one's spiritual path, and will take you off on a side adventure that will involve a lot of suffering. And so that's the guiding principle, I would say, with regard to how to approach sex is from where does it come from? Where does it go? What are its intentions? What are its outcomes? And I will say, I think it can be of benefit on one's spiritual practice. In fact, I will say, I didn't know if I would share this with everyone or not, but I once had a Gnostic flash in the midst of sex, and so that can happen, Yeah, I'll leave it at that, but I'll take any questions if people have specific questions.
Maybe just say something about sex as an experience of union.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is the underlying reality, right? And this is, everything that I said about from and for cultivating selflessness speaks to union. As you give up yourself, what comes out of that? That's union. So when you give up yourself, the union is what comes in. Meister Eckhart said you have to go completely out of yourself. And he said, if you go completely out of yourself, God has no choice but to come in. In other words, union is automatic if you let go of yourself. in your selfishness. And I would say that's because it's already there. It's just that the self and is occluding it. That's why if you go out of yourself, then the unity becomes clear. And obviously, symbolically, this is, going on in the whole sex arena. Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to appreciate your answer. I thought was really respectful to a wide array of thinking about this. I just want to appreciate. I heard intentionality. I heard being mindful, and I heard outcome. What's the result of the experience? And I just want to appreciate your frame on that and leaving it pretty broad.
Yeah, I think you have to, because it's not just one thing, like I mean, we talk about sex like it's just one thing, but I mean, it isn't anything. I mean, yeah, I mean, you have to leave it broad, because there are so many possibilities, so many relationships, so many experiences that are possible, both good and bad, you know? So I think you have to look at it like that. It's not just one thing. You have to take a broader perspective on what is the spiritual path and how do I conduct myself accordingly in all experiences, including that experience, that.
I just also want to appreciate this group just touching on the subject because it's obviously such a powerful force in creation, and it's really useful to have thoughtful, um, spiritually based conversations around it. How it's just part of managing creation. And again, it's just a super powerful force on the planet that all of us need to figure out how to manage.
Yeah,
And what's the right way for us to manage that as we're trying to, come to terms with really what's this mystery about with all the forces around us.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I mean, a super powerful force in the body too, and in the mind. And so, yeah, and of course, Bruce and I was talking, of course, largely a taboo subject. And so, yeah, I do think it's good to have a discussion about it because, yeah, it touches everyone's lives, but nobody ever talks about it openly, or, it just isn't that common, I guess. People do, but yeah.
Don't see any more hands up here. Okay, another skeptical question for you. I get it that an awakened person would act with kindness and not use the view that everything is perfect as an excuse to sit on her hands in the face of others' suffering or to ride roughshod over others. Nonetheless, I am skeptical that a person would grasp the nature of all things that have ever happened simply by awakening. And I think I left out something here that by overcoming their own sense of suffering, that they would have a sense of knowing everything.
Well, I think there's some misunderstandings maybe in the question. And so the first thing, and this could just be a function of how the question is worded, and we all know words are difficult. So, but when you say that a person could grasp everything that has ever happened or all things or so on, a person can't grasp that. In fact, what is realized is that nothing can be grasped. And it is not realized because one has gone beyond their own suffering. It's the opposite. One goes beyond suffering because one realizes that nothing can be grasped. That's what takes one beyond one's own suffering. So, yeah, I think that's clear.
Let me ask a little clarification and maybe tie this together. From a Buddhist perspective, there's a heavy focus on suffering and overcoming suffering and the teachings that help you do that. But what you're saying is, perhaps even the goal of overcoming one's suffering is a view that doesn't really lead to freedom.
It's a selfish goal, one might say.
It's based on the self, yes. I've lost my real question there, but
Tell me this, Bruce. Give me an example of a Buddhist teaching that helps people overcome suffering.
Be kind to others, and diminish your sense of your own notice other people's problems, help them resolve them, and don't pay attention to those things that trouble you, because other people's problems are bigger. I don't know if that's a Buddhist teaching, though.
Yeah, but the general idea is there. And so what I would say is that this teaching comes from this deeper reality of unity, of selflessness. And because it's true, that's why it alleviates suffering.
Because
So,
the myth of the self is a deception. If you alleviate that myth, you alleviate suffering.
I mean, I wouldn't put it exactly like that, but I would just say that the deeper reality in which all beings are one being, in which nothing can fundamentally go wrong, in which the unity that exists is love. That deeper reality is why those teachings work.
Mm.
And so if you just if you follow the teachings, it will work, but you'll still be on a bit of a roller coaster ride because you're just following the teachings and following the teachings. And it is to the extent that you follow them, it will alleviate your suffering and the sufferings of others and so on. So it puts you on the right track. But you will not eliminate suffering entirely unless you realize that the underlying truth, then even if you suffer, you don't suffer. Does that make sense? Like, at least this is how I would say it. Yeah.
I think it kind of brings back to when we started, no? Like the immortal reality that we are, because how can you be scared if you live in the knowing that you are not your body and your mind and that everything
Or your fear.
appear and disappear? There's no fear there because the fear comes from thinking we are this body and this mind. What's going to happen to me or to this world or to this body? But once we know that's not real, then what's there to fear?
Nothing. And even even if fear arises, you know it's not what you are. This is what I was saying earlier about the identification piece. It's the fear is just, you know, is a function of the body, yeah, and the mind too. And the mind becomes fearless, but the body might still have fear in it. But you know you're not your body, so it's of no concern to you. You just wait, it passes.
So I have a really bad ear infection right now, causing me pain. The antibiotics, which I haven't kicked in, but it doesn't cause me suffering. So there's a very difference between discomfort, pain, body stuff, and sufferings. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a good thing to notice, you know, that you can have pain without suffering. I think there's even a saying about that, isn't there? That the pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional.
right.
Yeah, it's a good saying. Yeah, and you know, it's good if you have pain, physical or mental, to look at it and try to see beyond it. That it is just a sensation, just thoughts, and that the one who sees that sensation and those thoughts is unaffected by it. So I don't know if that, you know, wins over the skeptic or not, but it's what I would say, you know.
Any more questions about that or thoughts?
Well, it's just that you're not identifying with the pain, correct, Matthew? You're identifying with something that,
Yeah,
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 that's what that's about.
yeah. It is, and once you see that, and it becomes clear, you know, you can practice that more and more, and it becomes clearer and clearer and clearer that you are not your body, not your pain, not your sensations, not your thoughts, and so on. And you just discovered this whole other, you know, way of life, I guess, which is not dependent on being identified with all of those things.
So does this sound accurate to you? So I've read accounts of master teachers who truly have self-realization, uh, and they know they're gonna die. And for some of them, there's a moment of fear. There's a hint of fear.
Mhm.
It doesn't last long, but it's there in the process.
Mhm.
Um, does that sound to you as an accurate account of a possible
Oh, it's definitely
death
possible.
process of someone that is realized?
Sure, it's definitely possible. But even the fear wouldn't really trouble them. You know, in Zen they have this saying, fear of death is no big deal. Who cares? Fears come and go all the time. Um, so it's not. There's a Zen story that deals with this also, where there was a Zen monk, and his teacher was supposedly very enlightened, and he believed him to be so. And one day, his teacher was out in the streets, and he was attacked by a robber and killed. And when he was killed, the teacher screamed out horribly, just horrible, horrific scream. And the student heard this and was deeply troubled by it, thinking, why did he scream like that? You know, how it made him kind of doubt everything that he was thinking or that he had learned, and so on and so forth. And but as the story goes, this student, when he realized the truth, it no longer troubled him. So this is just to say it's possible, but why be troubled by it? You know, this is the thing. Like, it's one thing to have fear arise within you. It's another thing to believe it, to believe it's real. You know, and even the Tibetans, look, the Tibetans say when you die, all kinds of crazy things may appear. Demons, shapes, worlds, and your task is to see through them, to see that they're not real, that it's just phenomena appearing in consciousness. Well, fear is just phenomena appearing in consciousness. There's nothing special about it. It's a sensation of the body intertwined with thoughts. That's all it is. So I don't think some measure of fear at death is, or fear at death at all, is disqualifying for realization or anything like that. I say it's no big deal. I will say, though, that after my awakening, I lost all fear of death. That doesn't mean that it can't arise, you know, but if it arises, it's no big deal. You know, when I went in, I went in to get a colonoscopy a couple years ago, which isn't a big deal, but anytime they're going to put you under, you think this could be it. You know, this could be, you might not come out of this, things go wrong, So I'm laying there in the, in the waiting area for my turn, and just sitting there and thinking this, okay, this could be the end of it. And what are you going to do? There's nothing to do. You just think, okay, that's it. And do you have some trepidation or anything? It doesn't matter really. Once you see, you just see like whatever's going to happen is going to happen. There's nothing to be done about it. You may as well be at peace, and if fear arises or if pain arises or you scream or you shout out, I actually, I had kind of the same experience as that monk did, because I used to think I was involved in martial arts and we did very intensive training that involved a lot of pain, and fear. We did specific training that involved lots of pain and a lot of fear. And so, I knew something about pain and fear. And I used to think, about people who were enlightened or whatever, I think, see how enlightened they are after you give them a punch to the solar plexus, see how that goes over, yeah, I have a different view of it now, a different perspective on that. And yeah, I mean, it's we're all going to go through some things, enlightenment.
I'm going to pause you there. I'm going to stop you there, and I'm going to give you one last question.
Okay.
And this, I'm going to give you an opportunity to summarize everything you've spoken to. So for everyone, now this is a question that Matthew submitted.
Really? I don't remember submitting a question, but okay.
Well, you didn't submit it. You talked to me. We were talking.
Oh, okay.
What is the most common stumbling block for practitioners?
What did I say when I gave you this question?
You said you thought it was a good question.
It is a good question.
We said we're not going to talk about these. We're not talking about answers. We're just talking about
questions. Okay. The most common stumbling block is looking for something rather than nothing. Yeah, and it comes up in many different forms. Looking for something particular. The state in which one can experience no fear. This is looking for something particular. Well, any state can come and go. There are such states, I will say. And there are such states in which one can be completely non-reactive to pain, but they're states. It's looking for something particular. And this goes for all ideas of what it is, concepts about about metaphysics and so on. This is all looking for particular things. And I would say this is the biggest mistake. In the religious traditions, they call it idolatry. Taking something concrete to be the divine. It's idolatry, you know. In the jnana path, on the path of knowledge, it comes in the form of like conceptualism. Thinking that the truth itself, reality itself, is mistaking it for a concept. And, you know, in the path of action, you know, compassion and loving kindness, it comes in the form of hypocrisy. And in the path of skill, it comes in the form of egotism, thinking that there is a person who develops these skills or who becomes enlightened.
Okay. Oh, 2 minutes left.
I just want to say I heard nothing in that answer.
You, you were listening well then.
Good. Yeah.
I just want to appreciate everybody. I want to appreciate Matthew. You spoke for 98% of the time tonight, and it was great. And I just appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us very much.
Thanks
you.
so much. I appreciate it, David. Yeah, sometimes when I was younger, you know, I can get into these like talkative modes, and I used to be kind of embarrassed about it.
Mm.
And so sometimes I'm a little shy about, you know, just speaking.
You're very coherent. You have a great command of language, and you're a blessing to us that can't can't find the words like you do, and so coherently. So it's a real gift.
Appreciate it. Thank you, David.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you all for being here and your interest in this most wonderful of topics, and your, you know, dedication to inquiry and practice, and, you know, the whole community of practitioners, the Sangha or whatever, is something, you know, I just keep appreciating more and more and more. So.
And thank you everyone who submitted questions. They were really helpful, and they, I think, really led to a really good discussion tonight. So thank you all very much. Now we're going to close with our little closing prayer. Well, first, thank you, Matthew, and everyone for being part of this. As we move into practice, may we sustain our effort, may we deepen our inquiries, may we find less of self everywhere we look, and more of nothingness, fewer distinctions. May we find union with all beings, whether that special person we're making love to, or everyone we pass on the street, recognizing that we're all in this together. May we each go forth tonight with the blessings of wisdom shared with us, and appreciation of this group that really is regular and showing up. So thank you all.
Thank you, Bruce, and thanks everyone.